Folks, there are just 72 days until the first presidential election since Donald Trump attempted to subvert American democracy in 2020. Trump has repeatedly shown his willingness to do it again, potentially with more reinforcements, and even Republicans pointed that out at the Democratic National Convention.
I realized Trump was a direct threat to democracy, and his actions disqualified him from ever stepping foot into the Oval Office again.
Joining us now are Matthew Dowd, a senior MSNBC political analyst and former chief strategist for the Bush-Cheney campaign, and Marcus Childress, former investigative counsel for the January 6th committee. Matthew, it had to be surprising to you to see so many Republicans, not just former Republicans, but actual Republicans on a Democrats' convention stage this week.
Yeah, it was very heartening to see that they're basically crossing the aisle in order to preserve democracy and preserve our Constitution in this country. And I have to we need to give credit to these folks. It takes a ton of courage for people like Jeff Duncan, Adam Kinzinger, and others to do this, because we all know how alienated they will be among fellow Republicans who don't seem to have the courage to do this in this moment of it. And so I hope it sends a signal to other Republicans who may be sitting on the fence and wondering whether or not they should cross over and do the same. I know it will send a great signal to independent voters, which is probably more important. It basically tells independent voters, listen, there is a candidate in this race who is going to achieve bipartisan things and protect our democracy in a bipartisan way. And so it took a lot of courage. I was very heartened to see it. It's a great moment for them to do this, and I sure hope it sends the signal to others to do the same.
Marcus, one of the reasons we wanted to make sure we had you on this morning was given your work on the 1-6 committee and the amount of time you guys spent thinking about how to tell this story to the American people. I want you to watch this video that played at the convention highlighting Donald Trump and January 6th.
And if I win, I will be looking very, very strongly about pardons. And I mean full pardons with an apology to many, an apology. They were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love, the love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Marcus, I need not explain to you what they're trying to do there, right? Both to make sure that they set the record about what actually happened on January 6th, given the revisionist history that we have heard from Republicans and from some dark corners of the internet, but also the fact that they highlight the fact that he has said he wants to pardon people who took part in what happened on January 6th is really with an eye toward the future, right? It's not just litigating what happened in the past. It is saying if he is elected to power once again, he has continued to pull that thread through.
That's exactly right. And I think that video was really effective at bringing Americans back to the chaos that we had to live through for 4 years, particularly on January 6th of 2021. Look, I can tell you, reviewing their surveillance footage, reviewing the footage from Nick Queston and others back when we were doing the investigation, it always put a pit in my stomach because of how violent, how angry all that surveillance and video truly was. Those rioters were trying to get in the Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power. They were going there to hurt congressional members such as Speaker Pelosi. That was their intent on January 6th. And then you think about the fact that Trump is having, awards galas down at Mar-a-Lago for these January 6th rioters, celebrating the Justice for All video or song that's been put out. I'd like to remind people who those individuals are, at least a few of them, who they are in that video singing Justice for All. One's William Cressman, a Kansas City Proud Boy who is carrying that wooden axe at the Peace Circle and was involved in the violence on the west side of the Capitol, who then lodged that axe under a door in the Capitol, allowing people to go through the crypt into the Capitol Visitor Center. So he basically allowed rioters to go from the Senate side of the Capitol to the House side, which is where we saw all those stark pictures of Capitol Police and Secret Service holding guns against the door. And then Ryan Nichols, who was involved in violence at the tunnel, right? These are the individuals who are in that video that former President Trump is now praising with an awards gala down at Mar-a-Lago. And it's frankly sickening. It's unserious, as the vice president said. But if we allow him to get back into power, we will have serious consequences, which is actually the more scary and should be more encouraging part of what the vice president said in her speech on Thursday.
It is a chill just went over my body as Marcus was talking because it is sick. And we're gonna make sure we have been talking. We continue to talk about January 6th because January 6th wasn't the end. It was just, frankly, in my opinion, the beginning. And the threat did not end on January 6th because the people at the Capitol that day, they got to go home. Okay, they went back home, and the FBI has then since been trying to literally identify and round people up to hold them accountable. But this is. Let me just play for you what Benny Thompson had to say at the DNC, because I think that he makes the point better than I ever could. Let's take a listen.
He would rather subvert democracy than submit to it. Now he's plotting again. His campaign proclaims that elections won't end until the moment of inauguration. We will win or it was rigged. We win or else. This is Donald Trump's America.
Matthew, those are the stakes. That's what we're dealing with in this election.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad you said this, the January 6th wasn't the end of the problem. It was actually the beginning of the problem, because it revealed so many things about where we are today as a country and where Donald Trump is. And it's basically achieve power at all means, at any means necessary, get it and keep it and hold on to it as long as you can. Not to, the interesting thing, as bad as that is, not to achieve something for the American public, but to either protect himself or to achieve things for his own personal benefit in the course of this. And that's what I think, as I reiterate what Marcus just said, the scary thing, I mean, we all thought 2016 was a very important election, and then 2020 was an incredibly important election. I actually feel 2024 is one of the most pivotal moments, that the 2024 election is one of the most pivotal moments for our constitutional democracy in our history for a variety of reasons. One big one, we have the opportunity to elect for the first time in our American history a woman as president of the United States of America, which would be historic. But two, if we don't defeat Donald Trump in this moment, he's only going to be emboldened to do more and more and worse in the course of this. And he's told us that in exact words, that he said what he wants to do and how he wants to do it in the course of this. So to me, the November election, I've gone through hundreds of elections in my 45 years of working in politics, and on behalf of many different candidates on both sides of the aisle, this to me is the most crucial election in my lifetime.
Simone, you and I were sitting next to each other on Thursday night, and I made a not dissimilar point, which is that we rightfully talk about the historic nature of Vice President Kamala Harris's vice presidency and now her candidacy for president. But that's all happening against the backdrop of an election that's going to be historic, because we're going to decide if we want to continue to be a democracy. That is what makes this election so important, and it is how it will be written in the history books.